All right, guys, welcome back to the Crossman Production Show. You guys, I'm so excited about today. I have a guest that is a friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while. We were just talking um, that I just recently read back into and found out that she is doing some amazing work. You know, talking about something that's really important to a lot of people and is an issue that is also important to me because I have a uh, daughter who actually has recently been diagnosed with autism. So this is awesome that I get to be able to talk to my next guest about this because as a parent, um, you know, my daughter was diagnosed and she's 18. So we kind of raised her, not knowing that was kind of what she was struggling with. But it's never too late to be educated and get to know, um, you know, um, how to um, work with somebody, and help someone who is diagnosed with autism. So I am excited about bringing my next guest in. Um, uh, Her name is I'll make sure I don't butcher this. I know she's in the back laughing at me right now, but it's Krisshonda Odufuwa. And hopefully I didn't know I butchered that, but we're going to bring her in. Listen, I just call you Chris.
I know, right?
How's it going?
It is fabulous. And let me say that it is Krishonda, which you did awesome, but
Okay.
the last name is Odufuwa.
Odufuwa.
Yeah.
So here, let me just say, you guys, I'm friends with her and her husband. Her husband, his name is George. Um, I'd have to tell the story about how I actually met George. I'm going to tell that in a second. But he tells me all the time how to say his last name, but for some reason I always butcher it. I'm horrible at names. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
Anyways, that's how I actually met Chris. And so George and I used to work together, and we were in orientation at a job one day. And George is what, 6 foot? How tall is George?
He's 6'7".
Tall guy. I'm a short guy. I'm 5'6". And so we're doing the orientation, and they do the icebreakers where they're like, tell us something about yourselves that nobody knows. Uh, and so George is like, yeah, I used to play a little bit of basketball, and I'm looking at the guy. And I'm like, this guy is it's 6'7". I'm looking. I'm like, I played a little bit of basketball. So I go home that night, and I go Google George's name, and then when I Googled it, I saw that he played for the Texas Legends, which is, for you guys who don't know, that's the D League for the Dallas Mavericks. And so I'm sitting next to this guy. So I come in the next day, and I'm like, yeah, George, I used to play a little bit of basketball.
A little.
You played for the Texas Legends. I mean, and he was good too. He was awesome. So, anyways, from there, I used to have a um, outreach program called Driven, where we went into Pleasant Grove and we taught leadership courses to the kids in the community, and we had a lot of fun with those kids.
Yeah.
We'd bring food and play games, and so that was post pandemic.
Mhm.
But George and Chris were both part of that program, and awesome, awesome people. So I am so excited to have Chris on and be able to share her journey, and then talk to you about autism and all the stuff that you're doing. So I'm going to jump into it.
Let's do this.
All right, cool. So, Chris, why don't you tell us kind of, tell us where you grew up and what was it like growing up?
Yeah.
For,
Yeah. So I actually grew up in Houston, Texas.
okay.
I have one brother and one sister. I am the baby of the family. My sister is deceased. My brother is here, and my mother raised us because my father passed away when I was younger, around
Mhm.
7. Um, my mom, she is amazing. Like, we don't even have enough time for me to really tell you how amazing this woman is, raising 3 children
Oh,
on
wow.
her own. Yes. A single mom because of being a widow. And she just definitely showed me how to become the woman that I am today. And so, yes, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and ended up coming to Dallas because I went to Texas Women's University.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you came here to go to college.
I did. And I had no clue what I was thinking when I
Right.
decided to leave my hometown, Houston.
So now you're here with us.
Yes.
So growing up, was there like, so when you went to Texas, what was it that you were trying to major in? And
So before college, right, I
right.
went to a performing arts school. It actually was
Okay.
called, yes, Carver Magnet High School.
Okay.
And I was in the performing arts section of that high school.
Wow. Okay.
And yes, and dance was something that I absolutely loved. And
Okay.
so dance is a part of my story, which a lot of people think is super weird, but basically when I was in the 12th grade, right?
Right.
I'm
Okay.
on my computer, I'm researching things or occupations that were related to dance.
Right.
So speech language pathology popped up out of nowhere, and I said, okay, I'm doing that. Had
Wow.
no idea what it was,
Okay.
and to this day, I have no clue how it popped up as being related because they are not related.
Right.
So I really credit that to the Lord on putting that on the screen, really, and moving me in that direction. So
Right.
when I did go to Texas Women's University, I majored in, for my bachelor's, I majored in communication sciences and disorders.
Okay.
And from there, I also have a minor in dance. So I didn't give up on dance.
Right.
I kept going. And so that is kind of the story of behind how I got into speech language pathology, and kind of how I also got into Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas.
Cool. So yeah, it's odd that that would pull up because I mean it's not related at all.
No, no.
Wow. So so let me ask you, when you started going down that path, where did you kind of find like your passion and your purpose? Because I know you do a lot of you went to the education field,
Mhm.
which is completely different from the art side, going into dance, because most people go into dance, they'll go into writing, become screenwriters, or want to get into acting, and so that's like a totally different path.
Mhm.
You chose education,
Mhm.
so what kind of drew you toward to that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, when I started dancing, I started in high school. I
Right.
started pretty late, and it was really a gift. It was a talent that I was given by the Lord, and so I was I was pretty good at it without having to have a lot of training and all that good stuff.
Right.
And so in that in dancing, I also taught dance. And
Okay.
so me teaching I had to pull out a lot of creativity because I was working with teaching smaller kiddos. And so
Right.
when it came to the dance movements, I had to be creative, and I would do silly things and talk about cotton candy and different desserts and pair them with the dance movement. And
Right.
I really believe, crazy enough, it started there. My passion for children or just teaching in general and education,
Right.
it started at that time that I didn't even know. Like I had
Mm.
no idea because remember earlier I told you
Right.
my passion was dance. I
Yeah.
literally thought I was going to go and move to New York and be
Mhm.
a professional ballet dancer.
Right. Right.
And that's not what the Lord had, but I am so excited to where I am now.
So let me ask you this. So going into into that field, was there a because I mean you went into it because you were trying to find something that linked to dancing,
Yes.
and they're like, hey, here, let me introduce you to this class, which had nothing to do with dancing,
No.
and you started doing it. You found out you were good at it. Was there a certain point that you were like, this is something I really want to pursue, and make become proficient at it. Not only that, but you became passionate about it.
That's a really good question. I can't really say it was a specific moment.
Right.
Um, the specific major that was at Texas Women's University for communication sciences and disorders. It was
Right.
a rigorous program and it was difficult. And I believe that that's kind of also what pulled me in.
Right.
That was the start of that challenge, something new. And then the more that I learned about speech and language and development, all of that was related to children
Hmm.
because we're talking about speech and language development. I'm learning about all of that good stuff. And so, kind of like I was saying, when I was teaching dance, those
Right.
seeds were being planted and I
Right.
didn't even know, right?
Right.
I'm teaching, I'm working with kiddos, and then I'm going finally get to college and get into this major. And then those kids start popping up and development starts coming. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, I like this.
Right. Cool. So let me ask you. You talked about some of the challenges. What were some of the challenges that you faced? What going into that, um, and how were you able to overcome some of those challenges?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? So one, moving away from my hometown, it was
Right.
tough. You know,
Right.
I didn't know anyone. I was blessed to find a really good friend that was actually in high school with me and we became roommates. But
Okay.
other than that, I knew no one. So that was challenge number one.
Right.
Um, number two was that I was really one of the first in my family to go to college away from home.
Oh wow.
Yes. And so it was that fear that built up, not knowing the uncertainties. And then when I arrived at Texas Women's University, of course, everyone was so loving and kind.
Right.
But in that major, I would say being a minority and being an African American in studying speech language pathology, it
Right.
was very minimal of our color skin. And so
Right.
I don't want to say it was so much of a challenge because it definitely was a welcoming environment. The challenge, though, came after I graduated
Mm.
and being a speech language pathologist assistant, I can vividly remember a situation where I was approached and I was questioned.
Mm.
And it was more of, you look too young to do this, or did you even go to college? And
Wow.
just those questions, because there aren't a lot of African Americans in the profession of being a speech language pathologist
Right.
assistant.
Right.
And I did have to face some of those challenges, but I continued to push through. I was telling you earlier about my beautiful mother. She
Right.
she pushed me in ways to stand up for myself and be
Mm.
confident. She always tells me, hold your head up high. And that's exactly what I did to
Right.
continue and pursue. And it didn't stop there though,
Right.
because about 4 years into being a speech language pathologist assistant,
Right.
I was introduced to this wonderful woman, and she said, "Hey, Krisshonda, have you ever heard of ABA? Because I think you would be absolutely like really great in it." And I'm
Right.
like, "What are you talking about? I'm a speech language pathologist assistant. This is my career. This is what I want to do."
Right.
So I ended up literally going back to Google, right?
Wow.
Full
Right.
circle,
Right.
went back to Google, Googled ABA, and I was like, hmm, wait, that actually might help my therapy and really fine tune and understand behaviors. So I
Right.
literally continued to do my research,
Right.
applied to Texas Tech University, and my master's degree is in special education with an emphasis in applied behavior analysis.
Okay.
From there, I had to go through a crazy process of taking a very difficult exam, but
Wow.
I passed and became a board certified behavior analyst.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this: you said that not a lot of people, African Americans, go through that route. What do you think that might be?
I would really say just the unknown.
Mhm.
Being a speech language pathologist is
Right.
someone that you don't really hear about. You don't hear about that career. You
Right.
don't hear about really going in and helping children, or not just children, but adults with different speech and language disorders. And
Right.
not only that, being a board certified behavior analyst, that is, it's also in that road of there's not a lot of African Americans. It's definitely building up, and I
Right.
love it. Um,
Right.
but it's kind of like on that same plate.
Right. And it kind of reminds me, like when we used to do the outreach program, we'd talk to those kids. I remember, I don't know if you remember this. One of our first meetings with those kids, we asked them what their favorite college mascot was,
Ah,
and not one of them could mention a college mascot.
hmm,
And um, when we were talking to them about it, a lot of them didn't even see themselves graduating high school, let alone going to college.
yep.
So when you say that, it kind of reminds me of that scenario. I don't know if you remember that.
I absolutely do remember that. And I connected because growing up, I didn't grow up in a lucrative area and a
Right.
fancy, no, not at all. There were times to where absolutely we struggled. And
Right.
so when giving back to the community and being in that specific situation, I
Right.
remember it so clearly because that was a connection right there.
Right. So, and that's to me is more important that we continue doing things that of that nature, going in and talking, because um, one of the reasons that we did this program is because a lot of kids, from, and I don't say just the inner city, but a lot of kids from the inner city thinks the only way is to get out of the inner city is either rap music or sports. They don't realize the vast, broad world that's out there
Yes.
of different things that they could be doing, like what you're doing. And that's just brings me to a second point. Um, being that you are, African American, they went into an African American female who went into that field. I would think that in society that would make you more valuable. You know what I mean?
Well,
To me, I would think that makes you more valuable because, um, you know, that gives you an insight, and um, I'll say, I guess, a platform to be able to speak to people, um, um, from that community. That community. I don't want to say this in a way that sounds, um, like discriminatory or anything. You know what I mean? But to be able to have you to come back in and talk to them and they see that you're successful at it, and it's something that they can do, it's something they can achieve. That to me, that's important. And I think that more people, from the African community, the African American community, should go, and start considering things like that too, because it's important. It's important for all of us, to be doing this. But um, my thing is that there's so many kids out there, especially, and we've met them. We've met a bunch of them who just needs that encouragement and needs people to come back there and tell them, that there's opportunities out there, and there's ways that you can achieve it. So, what's your thought on that?
Absolutely. Representation is
Right,
everything. Everything. You know, sometimes we forget that people are always watching us. You know what I
right,
mean? You don't have to be somebody famous or
right,
well known to have all these followers. When you're going to the grocery store, kiddos are watching you, adults
right,
are watching you, and just making sure that, you carry yourself with respect and dignity. And as my mom would say, you hold your head up high,
right,
you make a difference. And when I walk into any room, that's what I want people to see. Yes, I may be and I am
right,
African American, definitely proud, but there's
right,
just so much more to
right,
that I believe that everyone should tap into. And but being African American and being in the space that I'm in, specifically be talking about the space of speech language pathology and ABA and
right,
autism, it's huge. And
right,
when someone else sees another person that they can relate to,
right,
that's when you start making those connections, and
right.
that's when things start turning. So,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So yeah, I wish that more people could see this, because these, first of all, there's a need for it.
Yes.
There's a big need for it, and we're going to go into this too, because I want to start kind of talking about autism and what that is, um, and the parents that who have children, that have been diagnosed, or maybe family members, or just people they know, and they're wanting to know a little bit more about it. I want to be able to start to kind of talk about that. So first of all, you're part of a program called Blue Mellow.
Mhm.
So we're gonna talk about that. So what is Mellow, and what does it stand for?
Awesome. Yes. So, Blue Mellow. Okay. Don't think I'm cheesy. But
Okay.
okay, earlier I did mention that I have a deceased sister, and my
Right.
sister, right before she passed away, she made a lot of jewelry. She
Okay.
made me this beautiful pearl bracelet and a beautiful necklace,
Right.
and it was pearls because I love pearls. And
Right.
so doing more research, I found out that blue is the rarest form of a pearl,
Oh
and
wow.
mellow is actually the rarest type of a pearl. And when it comes to being rare,
Right.
children with autism are very rare. They're unique, they're special, just like a pearl. And so I put Blue Mellow together and created that organization so
Cool.
that we can focus on supporting families that love someone who has autism, therapists, educating them, and just providing that love and support that they need to continue to grow and be there for their families.
Cool. Now we're talking about autism. So for somebody who doesn't know what that is,
Mhm.
can you explain what that is, and can you share kind of what some of the signs are
Yeah.
that someone might be, diagnosed being autistic?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Mm.
autism, the full word or the
Yeah.
phrase is autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
And what it simply is, in simple terms, it's a neurological disorder,
Okay.
and it can affect people in different ways. And
Right.
that's why that word spectrum is there, because everyone that is diagnosed with autism, they
Right.
don't experience the same thing. And
Right.
so it affects communication, it affects behaviors, and it also affects that socialization piece. And so that is a short summary of what autism spectrum disorder is.
Okay. And what are some of the signs? Like if you're a parent and you have a young child that's that's starting to show some of the signs. What are you looking for?
Absolutely. Age is so important and early intervention is even more important. So some of the signs are lack of contact. And when I say contact, I mean like eye contact.
Right.
Maybe not responding to their name, even going into sensory needs. So when I talk about sensory, it's more of how someone experienced the world.
Right.
Sometimes things are louder than what you or I might think they are for
Right.
someone who's autistic. And smells can be more extreme to others. Tastes can be different.
Mm.
Going into that communication, that lack of communication,
Right.
specifically, some on the autism spectrum are non-vocal,
Mhm.
and use communication devices to express their wants and needs. Or others in that social component may not really understand how to even start a conversation
Mhm.
or responding to maybe a social environment.
Okay. And so one of the things that people ask too is as a child starts getting older, are they able to grow, or is that how is
Yeah, that's a question I get a lot. And of course, as parents, you already have this thought about how you would want your child's future to be,
right?
right? So when it comes to autism and growing out of autism, there are things that children can gain from specific therapies when they have autism. So I wouldn't say that you're going to grow out of it, but
Right.
you are going to be able to learn how to navigate the world when you
Right.
have autism.
Okay. So now, if you're a parent who suspects that their child might be autistic,
Okay.
um, and you start seeing some of the signs, what as a parent what could you as a parent could you do
Yeah.
to um, one, see if your child is diagnosed on the spectrum, and if they are, um, what can you do to help that child grow and still be and be successful?
Absolutely. Every child is different. And I
Right.
want to like just hone that in. Every kid is different, and every kid is not going to need all of the therapy, all of the blows and whistles, right? The
Right.
first thing I tell any parent is to take a breather, and maybe stay away from Google so much, just
Right.
because, of course, there's a lot of negative things when it comes around autism and even the therapy of ABA, applied behavior analysis. And
Right.
that's really the number one therapy that it shows evidence to help increase behaviors and teach skills for children with autism.
Right.
So again, what I would definitely pour into that parent is to, one, if you suspect it,
Right.
go to your pediatrician,
Right.
give them what you are experiencing. If you've got videos, like show them. And then
Right.
on top of that, go get them tested. Your pediatrician will refer you to the appropriate provider. And then even
Right.
after that testing, go get another one. Like, even, getting a second opinion, there's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion.
Right. So now, as a parent, beyond that, you know, diagnosis, um, how do you help help the child? What things can you do to help that child personally?
As a parent,
Yeah.
as a parent, you have to take care of yourself, okay? Because if you're not taking care of yourself, and that means just mentally, you are not going to be able to really pour into your child. You
Right.
know, you already had this preconceived notion of what you wanted your child to be, and then all of
Right.
a sudden you get this diagnosis and parents are freaking out, and it's totally normal. Like, I understand it.
Right.
But having a self-care routine will help. And then on top of that, finding that right provider, finding someone that you trust, someone that will really pair with you when it comes to that parent training to help um, increase behaviors that need to be increased and decreased, and really give realistic tips and realistic strategies that you can use outside of any therapy.
Okay. So now, like for me, kind of what we experienced with my daughter is a lot of, you know, like I said, she wasn't diagnosed until she was 18. So we went through 18 years, you know what I mean, of her, having this disorder, and we were unaware of it. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, she's just being difficult, this, and she's being, the schools, had their whole opinion and how they treated it. As a parent, sometimes that can be overwhelming. You know, so um, first thing is, it's to me, it's better if you diagnose it early.
Yeah.
If you're able to catch it early,
Yeah.
because that saves you a lot I don't say heartache, but
Hmm.
trying to deal with that's some of those situations, because like you said, a lot of it's communication.
Yeah.
Now when you go back now, that um, I know some of the signs. I wish I knew them now then, like I know them now. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have helped. And one of the things that I guess that bothers me from a you know um, from the school's perspective is that she's gone through the whole school system. She's had these different counselors working with her. She's been on these special programs helping her go through. And to me, I'm wondering, how did she see all these counselors? You know, go to see these doctors, and they all missed it
Yeah.
that entire time. Yeah.
I definitely want to provide some feedback there, because you said this, your beautiful daughter is 18 years old, right? And
Right.
so if we look back 18 years ago,
Right.
there was not as much screening, as much education, as much talk about autism like it is today in 2023.
Right.
Um, the actual ratio, there is a 1 to 36 ratio. So for every 36 child, and I'm talking about a boy, so boys, males, um,
Right.
one out of every 36 will typically be diagnosed with autism, and that's
Wow.
huge. Yes. But there's more screenings being done, there's more education, and just that stigma is really decreasing, because wonderful people like you get to talk to people like me and spread it and
Right.
really talk about the truth. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Right. Right. So now the kind of gives me two other things. So one um, is, what types of resources are out there for parents now that they could use, to help with their child.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different resources. Literally, there's ABA, applied behavior analysis therapies, are everywhere in the Dallas Fort Worth area. That's definitely a number one resource.
Mhm.
A number two resource is that there are a lot of teachers being educated on the signs of autism. So when we're looking at those younger ones that are in, preschool and kindergarten, those teachers are kind of, of course, observing and teaching, right? And they're looking at their kiddos, and they can refer their parents to the right and the appropriate professionals.
Right.
There's speech language pathology. That's actually another therapy that is used for a lot of children who were diagnosed with autism to help increase their communication.
Right.
There's occupational therapy, there's physical therapy. There's so many different therapies that are coming together and collaborating
Right.
to make sure that we disseminate and support the autism community.
Cool. Now, this is going to be my second part of the question. Is now, my daughter's 18,
Mhm.
so she's in high school.
Mhm.
Um, she's pretty close to graduating. Um, she's trying to get into the workforce.
Mhm.
You know, um, so what kind of things can I do now as a parent to help her? Since we diagnosed it so late in life,
Yeah.
um, and she's trying to transition from being a child into being an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, um, and kind of dealing with some of the challenges that she's going through.
Yeah.
What could I do now? To help her navigate some of that.
Absolutely. I believe the first thing is really respect. Respecting her and respecting her wishes and respecting how she's feeling. You never want to downgrade anybody when they're expressing something to you.
Right.
And there is a strong possibility that she may not be as expressive as maybe you want her to. And
Right.
so being patient would be the number two thing. Be patient with her and just ask her more things that she would like and ask her more things that she would dislike so that you can learn her. I would really advise that you relearn your daughter. Of course, as a parent, you know your kids,
Right.
but with this new diagnosis and so recent, I would spend some time with her. I would hang out with her and just really observe her, give her love, and
Right.
support her, knowing that she has autism and making it something that's not such of like a bad thing, like, oh my
Right.
gosh, but a
Right.
thing that, hey, I'm gonna walk with you with this. Yeah.
Right. So now her going into like the workforce. We talk about the communication. One of the big things with my daughter, and I don't know if this is like across the board, but um, she doesn't like to be like um, interact closely with people. Like, so she wants to go to the workforce, but she doesn't want to deal directly with customers. You know what I mean? Um, so, what kind of career could help her kind of guide her that might be something that uh, she might enjoy and not being overwhelming for her, especially going in for her first job, because first jobs normally you think of fast food joints and things that you're always going to interact with customers. So what can I do to get her help her get into the workforce without her feeling overwhelmed?
Yes.
In that,
Yes. I
you know?
love that question because remember we talked about autism being a spectrum. And
Right.
then even outside of it being a spectrum, every single person has a different personality.
Right.
Okay. And so what I would suggest there is really for her to understand who she is. There are
Right.
so many amazing personality tests that are out there, and so digging into that and doing research and choosing the personality test that may work best for her
Right.
or you guys together, completing that and then really getting those results and diving deep into, okay, this is my personality. This is what I'd like. This is how I would really respond to a situation like this. And
Right.
then from there, going in based on her personality, not
Right.
based on autism. And I
Right.
want to say that again, based on her personality, because at the end of the day, she is a beautiful human being and she
Yeah.
has her own character traits and her
Right.
own personalities. And so, from those results of that personality quiz or test, then let's then go in and talk about what careers would be a better fit for her for that time.
Cool. That's great. Great advice. So, is there a like a resource or a place I could find those kind of tests?
Absolutely. What I could do, I don't have them on hand, but I
Okay.
can definitely send you a message and give you a list of those personality tests. And so that if anybody wants them or needs that resource, they can definitely get them.
Cool. And you know, when you send them to me, what I'll do is I'll put them in the detail section of our interview. That way, you know, anybody out there who's looking for resources, you know, we'll put some resources out there um, to help. So, one of the questions I did want to ask you too is, you know, um, when you're going, you know, through autism, what is the biggest thing that you learned as a parent from this?
So I will say my children, I do have two boys. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. No, they're not diagnosed with autism. So my relationship and my passion from autism comes from working hand in hand and
Right,
one on one with children who do have autism.
right,
And so just understanding the population and how much they mean to me. And
right,
the thing is, it's not that someone with autism is totally different, like they're in another category. No,
right,
they're human beings too.
right,
Like it's sometimes I get upset about how much people want to isolate those who have autism or kind of, look at them weird if they're expressing themselves in a way that maybe is not socially appropriate.
right,
But just learning that anyone that is diagnosed with autism is beautiful, is funny. Oh my gosh.
right,
And regardless of any of the social pieces that are maybe deficits, but passionate about what they do, consistent and loving and caring. Oh my gosh, caring.
right,
And so that's just where that that puts my heart. Yeah.
right. You know, and you bring up a good point too, because one of the things that I have to brag about my daughter is an entrepreneur.
Uh,
You know, she is. She's a lot like me in a lot of ways. That she's very business minded. The other thing is, she wants to learn something, she'll go learn it.
uh-huh.
She'll do the research, and you know, uh, probably within 24 hours, she can tell you everything about
Yeah.
what it is that she went to go, you know, to learn. So she's very intelligent. Um, you know, the tough part for her is just the social interaction, which um, you know, she's part of our you know, the youth group at our church. So she, I would say within the last maybe year, maybe a year and a half, has really started opening up and, you know, making a lot of friends and at school and at church. So I think that part of, you know, for us is keeping her, you know, when we raised her, we kept her, you know, involved with you know, with youth, and I think that's helped her too, where she's not as closed in like with other people as she used to be.
Hmm.
She's starting to come out of her shell a little bit with it, you know,
Hmm.
especially now that she wants to go work. But you know, like you're saying, you know, people when you one of the things I hate is when people put labels on people, because each of us have something we deal with. You know what I mean? But you put certain labels like autistic, or you know, and people seem to want to frown on on certain labels, which you know everybody's going to be different. You know what I mean? But you know, like you said, she's a very she's a very intelligent person, very loving person. She you know uh, very caring person. You know, so as a parent, you know, seeing her now going from the child, becoming, going from the child stage into an adulthood, I'm trying to do what I can to help her to be successful with that. So I want to give you the last word on this. What is it like? What would be your biggest advice to a parent who has a child that that has autism? What would you be your biggest advice to that parent?
I would definitely tell a parent that it is not the end of the world.
Mhm.
Forget what the society says or thinks they know about autism.
Right,
Now that you have a child that has a diagnosis of autism, you
right,
create the world that you want for your child.
right,
Your child will thrive, your child will succeed. It may look like what others' definition is in the society, right, for those specific things, and it may
right,
not, but who cares?
right,
You have a wonderful, loving child. It's gonna be hard, it's
right,
gonna be tough, there's gonna be challenges, but who doesn't face them?
right.
And they're gonna be able to get through it and work through that. So absolutely.
Cool. And you brought up one other point. Is raising a child with autism. There's challenges. I mean, there was days that that we couldn't get her out of bed to go to school. We would literally have to drag her out of bed and get her to school because we didn't realize that she had there's this real anxiety about being around. Sometimes being around people like it's overwhelming. So let me ask you this: so if a parent is facing a point where a child is being really, we call it being stubborn, but it wasn't stubborn. You know what I mean? Uh, they're being difficult. What's the biggest advice you would give a parent to that?
So I would definitely say there's always a reason why anybody engages in a behavior that they are doing, right?
Right,
And so
right,
when we talk about children, there's always a reason why they're stubborn or they're tantruming or whatever, however you want to define it. And especially with those who may be diagnosed with autism, that communication, remember, is a deficit and that social is a deficit. And so if I can't communicate what I'm wanting or what I'm needing, and if I
right,
can't like socially express things right to you or initiate things, of course there's going to be behavioral challenges. And
right,
so again, I would say to that parent, there's a reason why your child is engaging in that behavior. They're just not bad, right?
right,
Like we always want to say, our kids are bad.
right,
There's a reason. And so getting with the right professional to help really peel those onions back and really understand the function or why that behavior is happening is so
right.
important.
Cool. So, wow, that's a lot of great advice. I'm so glad that I had you come on and talk to you about this because it is a very important subject,
Mhm.
and I think that for me, if we would have caught this earlier, I think it would have been much easier to have handled. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted to bring you on and talk to to parents about this, so that they help them catch this earlier and help them navigate through the process. So thank you so much
You're
for
so
joining.
welcome. You're so, so, so welcome.
So, but again, thank you for being on the show. So, um, we're going to keep in contact.
Yes.
What I want to do is we want to put the resources
Mhm.
on the detail,
Mhm.
section. But if anybody has like specific questions that they would, wanted to talk to you about, is there a way they could reach you?
Absolutely. So a big thing is there's a lack of the appropriate, I would say, resources sometimes. And when I say lack, there's a lot of money involved that you have to get with a lot of people and you got to pay this. But I'm actually I have a YouTube channel and it's at Blue Mellow Behavior Change. And on that channel, I dive deep into all things autism. You can even find me on Instagram on the same title at Blue Mellow Behavior Change and Facebook as well. And so you can reach out to me. You can direct message me there. I will definitely be able to answer any other questions that anybody has. I really want to support the autism community and really spread the truth and love and support and educational resources and all of that to anybody that is needing that. Yeah.
Cool. And just so that you know, I have a friend of mine who's actually been watching. Her name's Autumn Miller. So,
hey, girl.
but she said that she'll definitely be reaching out to you.
Yeah.
So, awesome. So
Yeah.
thank you again for being on the show.
You're so welcome. No, thank you for having me.
So, all right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. For this episode of Crossman Productions. Again, it's always fun catching up with, some, I wouldn't say old friends, but we got to do better of keeping in contact.
Yeah, we do.
So, all right, guys. Remember, you guys are uniquely designed with a purpose, and always keep moving forward. Peace.